Welcome to the National Manufacturing Debate 2012 at Cranfield University, and welcome to Martin Smith, a member of PA Consulting Group's management team. Thank you for your presentation today on how to sustain growth in UK companies. I understand from your presentation that some research has recently been released from PA Consulting, giving the results of questions asked to firms about what they need to grow, and that there were other stakeholder responses in there as well from government, trade bodies, academia. Could you just highlight some of the key aspects that were raised as what does UK manufacturing need to grow?
Sure. So rather than us give a view about how to grow manufacturing industry, we, together with George Freeman, an MP, gathered together about 120 to 130 technologists from around the UK. Now, those technologists were drawn from banks, interestingly, from manufacturing companies, from academia, and also from government itself. And rather than tell them an answer and have them debate it, we just said, tell us what you'd like. What could we do to help you grow? We did it by different sectors, because the sectors are very different in terms of what their needs are. But from the report, which is available on the PA website if you want to get to it, we abstracted 4 high-level messages, which we've now fed back actually to the people that came to these events, and they absolutely agree this does summarise their views. So the first is that we've got to start picking winners. Now, this is not an exercise of exclusion, it's an exercise of inclusion, in that we should come up with a number of areas, technology and sector, where the UK believes it should be excellent. There will be others, but there should nonetheless be some, where people can coalesce around trying to build businesses and build success for the UK in those areas. And there's a good example of one that was started a few years ago in automotive, which has obviously been a fantastic success over the last few years. Just by joining the supply chain up, getting interested parties together and getting them talking about what would improve their businesses, good things start to happen. It doesn't require more government funding, it just requires that cohesion. The second point then is, well, if you've found the winning sectors, the areas where you want to focus, there will be others. The second question is, what should you do in there? And really, it's all about getting the supply chain to connect up, understand what the technology needs are in the future, understanding how to make the UK an even more attractive place to base your business. And that's discussion. It doesn't create a huge amount of time, it just requires stakeholders to work together. The third piece is entrepreneurialism. Now, entrepreneurialism in the UK has improved measurably over the last 20 years, and when I talk to venture capitalists, what I'm hearing these days is that typically a management team has had a lot of experience of forming new companies when they come looking for funding, which is very, very encouraging. It's no longer something that the UK isn't good at. In fact, measured against most other countries, reports would suggest we're very good at it indeed. The question is that we should do more, and there was one particular point that came up, which was around mid-term finance. It seems to be the UK is a great and quite an easy place to start a small business. Many people disagree with me, but that seems to be the case. And it's a good place to have a business that's 50 million plus turnover, but growing from one to the other is really very challenging, much more difficult than it is in, for example, Silicon Valley. And the final point is about just generating more enthusiasm and excitement about manufacturing and engineering, so that our youth and our talent chooses to go into those industries that generate exports, rather than perhaps going to government or into finance or into consulting even. And how do we make that even more exciting? You see governments around the world doing some very imaginative things to excite children about manufacturing. We should do that too.
Well, I mean, there are a number of initiatives in the UK to enthuse the next generation. How well in the responses that you got along these 4 different topics were the solutions, existing solutions, talked about in terms of how well they're doing in addressing these gaps?
Well, there's a slight roundabout answer to your question. I was really quite shocked at how poorly understood they were. And I challenged a number of the business leaders around this, and they said, well, we're very busy. We're kind of busy. So the catapult centres, for example, which are undoubtedly a good idea, and nobody can argue that's a good idea. The vast majority of people have never heard of them. Manufacturers just completely pass them by. And I'm sure the same is true of other initiatives, which are useful and supported, but are confused. We didn't particularly go into any particular exercise and say, is that a good or a bad one? But the appetite for more in these spaces was very clear.
So do you think then there's a role for government and for stakeholders that run these initiatives, for example, the Bloodhound Project and the Big Bang Fair, to readdress the way that they're communicating with industry?
Well, maybe, and I wouldn't want to generalise on this. I think there's a much more important role for government, which is to act as a catalyst to enable industry. So that's a relationship which says, we're here to help you. We're not here to tell you. We're not here to invent policy for you and then wonder why you don't take it up, or to start initiatives which don't really catch fire. It's rather to say, we want you to grow in nanotechnology. Tell us the 15 things we can do. And our report makes some suggestions. But those then will connect with industry, will connect with academia, because it'll be their own suggestions. And that's what they've done in the Automotive Council.
Excellent, thank you. Another theme that has come out this morning through presentations and some questions have been put forward for the panel this afternoon in today's debate on enhancing the supply chain for growth has been a supposed trend for greater collaboration in the supply chain. And you talked about one of the identified issues in your research being to join the supply chain up. So can you tell me how you understand collaboration, what you understand that to be for industry?
So let me give you an example. I won't name the company because I haven't cleared the quote, but I recently visited a major car manufacturer in the UK, one of the top 10. And I was talking to the Director of Engineering about what he was doing on his supply chain. And he was saying that he had identified all the SMEs and the SMEs, in fact, in the supply chain in the UK. He understood what their technical competences were. He was sourcing material from them. Occasionally, but not preferentially, they were taking shareholdings in those companies. But they were working with the companies to make them even better suppliers to this particular organisation. And they were providing them with influence over the financiers by promising orders in the future and giving a degree of financial, guarantees too strong a word, but a financial security to their future, which was allowing them to negotiate with the banks, common practice, which allows further investment. And it's that relationship, it's that understanding, it's that closeness which is so powerful. Now again, in automotive that's been going on for some time. I think the relationship is deeper now than it might have been 10, 15 years ago, but it's much less common in other supply chains.
Something else that was mentioned this morning was an idea for collective ownership, which is less common in the UK than it is in some other countries. And I understand this is something that PA Consulting has experience in. How can having employee and collective ownership of firms help to stimulate growth in them?
So PA's existed for almost 70 years, and we're basically a consultancy and technology company. And nobody working there now worked there 70 years ago. And our market changes on a whim. It's probably one of the most volatile markets you can imagine. Nobody's ever been forced to buy consulting. We have to meet our customer needs every day in order to stay fed. So we're a very reactive business. And yet we've survived. We've been very successful. And we're employee owned. We always have been. I think the employee ownership aspect has been very important in building that business. It manifests itself in a different relationship between the employee and the company, or the owner, in fact, of the company. And if I talk from personal experience, it puts you in a situation where everything you do feels like you're dealing with your own organisation. Now, as an employee, I was very loyal to the organisations that employ me. But when you own the organisation, you take a longer-term view of the organisation. In most cases, a significant amount of our personal wealth, my personal wealth, is tied up in the company. You become intensely proud of the company. For some people, it means you stay employed in that organisation for far longer. But you end up with a very different emotional relationship between the employer or the owner and the company. The disadvantage can be in some businesses, of course, it's more difficult to access capital when you own the company yourself. And I wouldn't like to comment on that because it would depend very much on the situation. But well, I'm in an employee-owned organisation and I'm very pleased to be so. So I suppose I'm a fan of that model.
Coming back to today's debate as an event, why do you think Cranfield has chosen this year to have enhancing the supply chain for growth? What's brought that to a head as the key theme? And are there any points that you would like to see raised this afternoon in the debate in relation to that?
So I haven't been in discussion with Raj. I don't know quite what's guiding his thinking. But there's clearly a massive debate running at the moment across UK industry about whether we need a commercial strategy for the UK. And our view strongly is we do. In fact, it's quite absurd not to, really, because we can't afford to do everything. The market alone is not enough. So I think this is a fantastic forum to continue that debate forward. I don't suppose today we're going to resolve it, but there really has to be a growth strategy for the UK enunciated. Again, not by government, but enabled by government. It should come from the practitioners. I suspect if it was properly organised, it could be done in a couple of months. We wouldn't have to decide what to stop, we just have to decide what to focus on, while still doing the other things. It would sort itself out over time. And without that, if I was a CEO of a small SME, or when I was actually running a small part of PA, or quite a big part of PA, it's very difficult to understand quite how to connect that into either the UK or the world economy. If I'd been part of a debate that understood, as Richard Parry-Jones had led in the Automotive Council, my role in that and the priorities in that and what was happening around me in that area, I would have felt a great deal better equipped.
So with that idea that with cohesive action and a clear debate underway, that we could resolve a lot of issues for UK industry, as you say, in a couple of months.
Identifying where to focus.
Yes.
It would then take several years to resolve.
Yeah, sure. So what would you like to see delegates, owners, MDs, CEOs of manufacturing firms that are here today, actions that they can take from today's debate?
Well, I think that we just have to see the coalescence happen. Coalescence is a good word anyway, let's use it.
That's wrong with it.
I mean, it's clearly, the UK is going to be strong in aerospace throughout my lifetime and beyond. It's very strong, second only to the US at the moment. We're not going to walk away from that. Automotive is another. Agri-science is another. It's not a long debate to decide there are a number of areas in which we are strong or we should be so. Then we just need to get people together to understand what they're trying to achieve in their businesses and what they should be doing collectively. Get the banks to understand what their role is in trying to grow that in their interests. And we're in a situation where the debate is in a very different place. Just imagine a world in which all those things happen naturally and business strategy is informed by those around you rather than being a bit of a mystery. And those conditions exist in many other countries. Unfortunately, it's almost a catch-up. That sort of situation occurs in Germany now. It occurs in Singapore, to a lesser extent in the US.
Thank you.
Thank you.